Alright, what's up, y'all? My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. Today is the 15th of July, 2026. This is a video under our main side, one of the four sides to us as In the Image Clothing Company, where our slogan is allowing the body to work. Okay, yikes. We're only a clothing company because clothing, the literal wording of clothing, is just the only thing physically placed onto our bodies. But it can be anything. Hats, gloves, pants, shoes, socks, tops, undergarments, jewelry, glasses, anything placed on the body at all. Okay, a bag over the shoulder. Clothing. The way that God clothes the fields with grass. We're designed in the image of God as human beings, in the image of Jesus Christ. That's why we are a clothing company, because we just need to be intentional about anything placed onto the human being. Okay, the literal word of clothing, meaning things like this, right? Clothing at very least needs to do these three things. Stay centered, because there's a centered line to our bodies. The sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose, the jaw stabilizing the entire body with musculature to the crown of the head, down to the upper ribs, out to the edges of our shoulders, going through the collars of our tops. Look at this. And the collars of our tops need to stay centered and snug. Okay, the importance of snug collars, keeping collars centered. In the Image Clothing Company, we are a clothing company. Clothing also needs to fit correct. There's no opinion to how or where this is. Gravity has the same effect on our clothing that it has on our bodies. And clothing is physically placed on our bodies. That's what the literal word means. But yeah, joints of material of clothing meshing with joints of body parts, okay? And throughout the body, this looks different in different areas. But there's only one way we can have clothing actually fit onto this universal human design. Being made in all the ways we can have it be in this modern man-made world, placed onto God's natural earth in 2026 and going forth. Being made in all the ways we can from 100% natural materials with our clothing. What that means is these unnatural materials that got invented just tens of years ago from today's date, they can really damage the body. So there you go. Okay, there's some information. The thing is, this video has a title on the 15th of July, 2026, under In the Image Clothing Company's main side, and that title is The Hips Open When the Legs Straighten. I'm going to discuss this because we discuss the anatomy of the human body in depth here under In the Image Clothing Company's main side, but truly the human being is just a mechanical machine placed onto this rock in space that is our Earth. Like I said, the vertical pull to gravity meshes with the center line of our bodies, okay? But this vertical pull to gravity comes down and meshes with the horizontal surface to the planet Earth as well. This is a 90-degree or a right perpendicular angle. There's only one way the human body could ever possibly work, determined by the shape and length of the bones connecting directly to each other through ligaments. They're very specifically shaped. Okay, and the length of the bones is just what they are. Once we get full grown, our body's just what it is. But like, look at my knuckles of my hands here. They can only mesh how they do, and no other way possible. So that's how all the bones in the body are. The body truly is just measurable mathematical degrees of hinges, levers, and rotation. Just degrees of motion, functioning. And there's a neutral position to the entire body, everything. The foot on the horizontal surface of the earth, zero drop, determine any brand of shoe, is the neutral. Then we lift the foot up, dorsiflexion, or point the foot down, plantar flexion, but there's always a neutral. Like the wrist can come up or down, but the neutral is just the only way the bones and the fingers are shaped, meshing into the bones in the hand, meshing into the two bones in the forearm, meeting the one bone in the upper arm, and then into the shoulder and into the sternum, into the spine, down the body to the feet, up the body to the head. You know, the jaw stabilizing the entire human being through all of this. You know, even just breathing. we have to stabilize through the entire body to some degree in every single breath we take because there's so much motion happening. Look at this. Okay, expansion and contraction of all these rib bones. The rib cage, the lungs within them are like balloons, and the whole body just moves all the way around when we breathe. Okay, but it is what it is. What it is blunt, bold, raw, and real in the Image Clothing Company style. And today is the 15th of July, 2026. So the hips open when the legs straighten. Let's talk about this. All right, let's talk about this. The feet, the bottom of them, zero drop, the term in any brand of shoe. Shout out to the wind. Here it comes. Here it comes. The winds of change. The top of the feet, though, is half of their function, okay? The top of the feet is entirely determined by the weave of the rope. If we have a shoelace, okay, we're just weaving ropes across the top of our feet. So, hear me correct, in the Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique is the only way the top of the feet are shaped. There's no opinion to it. It's physics, truly, okay? Universal laws like gravity, things outside of all of us, are what we abide by as human beings. And we're just weaving a rope across the top of our feet, okay? We've got internal rotation, external rotation, pronation, supination, dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, different length 5 toes in the feet in this universal human design. We evenly roll off the ends of our 5 different length toes from the neutral toe, the pinky one, the pinky toe, the outside toe. The outer part of the foot is straight forward, okay, traveling up the upper leg. Just like the pinky finger is straight out the outside of the forearm and the entire arm traveling up the entire arm. There's only one way the human body could ever work. It's just mathematics. There's a bug on my arm. So anyway, when we have the feet at the bottom end of the leg, well, we have the hip at the top end of the leg. Watch this. When we straighten the knee between the foot and the hip, the entire leg does the same thing. We've got a video here currently under In the Image Clothing Company's main side titled Pivoting on the Heels of the Feet. Okay? But yeah, the whole leg is just one straight thing that has just motion to it. Rotations, really. Internal rotation. Stemming from the neutral position, though. Bringing the foot inward. The entire leg, when the knee is straight between the foot and hip. External rotation, starting from that neutral pinky toe straight forward. Bring the entire leg outward. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, there's just degrees of motion the body has, and that's all it could ever possibly do. Just determined by the shape and length of our own individual bones. They grow by themselves, but we can call them individual bones. Sure, we can, we could, we might be able to have that be heard in the microphone. If there's not too much surrounding sound, I don't own the park. But yeah, there's a universal human design, and so just our bodies are just all the same. They just are. That's it. The body's the same. Everyone, all the people, everybody who has one, and everyone who has a body. You can be different, but only from something, which is the universal human design. So what I'm saying is, this video's title, on the 15th of July, 2026, under In the Image Clothing Company's main side, the hips open when the legs straighten. Okay. Now, watch this. When I'm sitting here on the ground, in order to get my hips to open all the way, I have to straighten my legs, really, because what happens is, as the upper leg bone comes up into the hip, this femoral head, okay, the top of the upper leg bone, which the upper leg bone is called the femur, okay, from the knee up to the hip, just one bone up here, it's called a femur. It comes up, and when it gets to the hip, the top of the bone comes in toward the center of the body a little bit, like this. Okay? And there's a ball at the top of the upper leg bone called the femur. The ball is called the femoral head. It meets into the hip, or the pelvis, at this little socket called the acetabulum of the hip. So it's a ball, like taking a fist with one of your hands, and a socket, like having an open palm with your other hand. Okay, there's a video's title here, under In the Image Clothing Company's main site currently, as of the 15th of July, 2026, titled The Open Palm and Internal Rotation, because we have 4 different length fingers that mesh and wrap evenly around a different length opposable thumb that plays an entirely different function as the fingers. There truly is only one way the human body could ever work. Alright, but we miss these kind of things if we don't understand why our bodies aren't working, or why other people's bodies aren't working in modern 2026 and going forth. There's different length 4 fingers, different length 5 toes, and these things just have to work evenly to share the weight. And we live in a modern man-made world that gets placed onto God's natural earth. Like I said, yeah, flat things are not textured, and man-made things are often flat. But there's a lot of things in life that are damaging our bodies in ways we could have never have happened in the past. In ways we could have never had happen. There you go. Right, before the technology, before we invented things. And so the big thing is universal clothing imbalances are shipped across the entire earth in modern 2026 and going forth in ways that just wasn't possible before we had the technology. We didn't have the possibility to mass produce clothing and have robots stitch our clothing and stitch imbalances into them, like rotating seams. Right, for example, in the Image Clothing Company's rotated seam modification. Wow, here's a lot of information for you. It's just another date-marked documentation under any of the 4 sides of In the Image Clothing Company that it is at the time. In this case, it's the 15th of July, 2026, under In the Image Clothing Company's main side. The hips open when the leg straightens. Okay. So watch this. What I'm saying is, this upper leg bone, the femur, as it comes up and into the hip, it comes up, but it literally comes inward toward the center of the body. Okay? But we've also got different length 5 toes down at the feet that we roll evenly off the end of. They come up and inward like an arrow to the centered line of the body. We roll evenly off the ends of 5 different length toes, and then we've just got a straight neutral position through the ankle and all the way up the leg, meeting into that upper leg bone, the femur, at the top of it, the femoral head, coming inward as well to the center line of the body. So there's this outward curvature through the whole legs, stemming from different length 5 toes at the bottom of the leg, at the feet, and then coming up and ending at the femoral head at the top of the upper leg bone, coming inward to the acetabulum of the hip. It's all just this outward curvature, and that's just how the body's bones grow by themselves. Designed by God, designed in the image of an unchanging God, the human body has always and will always be the exact same. There's only one way the human body could ever work, ever, in any aspect of a human being's existence. Don't believe me? Get out your measuring tape. It's mathematics, but we just have to know why we're getting into chronic patterning, okay? I mean it. So, there's a video, currently, at least, under In the Image Clothing Company's main site here, titled, Where Open Hips Really Come From. Right, and well, we've got a lot of videos talking about the feet, talking about shoes, talking about shoe lacing, talking about pants, talking about the hips, things like this under In the Image Clothing Company. As of today's date, the 15th of July, 2026. We've got well over 600 videos on our main site alone as one of our 4ths, just thoroughly, deeply discussing the information that we thoroughly and deeply discuss. The anatomy of the human body, how it really works, undisputedly, mathematically measurable. Free modifications in clothing, with all these imbalances in modern clothing and the need for clothing to just fit the body proper. And, you know, we give, you could call it free modifications in how to approach our lives, living in this world we live in when things don't really mesh with our bodies the way that the earth does. Because God designed the earth, and then he designed the human being to place onto it. You know, so what I'm saying is, if we're going to have open hips, it comes from the feet. But, you know, a lot of that's just understanding that we can't alter our feet, and so I discussed what's needed, at least baseline, in shoes, the sole of the shoe and the top of the shoe, because that's plantar flexion of the foot, or dorsiflexion of the foot, okay? Pointing the foot down is the sole of the shoe, this determining how the foot could work. Lifting the foot up is the top of the shoe, which is the shoelacing technique, determining how the top of the foot could work. And as we walk and you know, move, okay, as we walk, this is this alternating pointing of the feet, lifting of the feet, plantar flexion, dorsiflexion. And so there's only one way it happens with the feet working how the bones are shaped. We've got a lot of bones, ligaments, tendons, and muscles in the feet. 1/4 of the entire body's bones are in our feet. And the feet grip arches inward, evenly opposing the center line of the human being to keep us vertical on Earth's vertical gravity pull. Okay. So, it's just a hinge, right? The foot's a hinge. Well, no. The foot's a lever, though, off the hinge of the ankle. But it's extremely specifically shaped with 27 bones. As far as I'm aware, there's 27 bones in each foot, okay? Somewhere right around there at least. So the point is, there's only one difference in the amount of hands bones and feet bones. And there's quite a lot, right? 1/4 of the entire body's bones are in these feet. And so what I'm saying is you can't even straighten your leg properly if you can't. But we're a clothing company, In the Image Clothing Company. Let me talk about some things here. So, heels on man-made shoe designs placed under the heels of our God-made feet. Okay? It's a wedge. But there's very, very commonly in modern 2026, and it's been this way for, you know, quite some time now, for there to be heels under shoes. But there's a neutral to the lifting or the pointing of the foot. Dorsiflexion or plantar flexion of the lever of the foot off the hinge of the ankle. And it's just determined by the horizontal surface of the planet Earth. Okay. There's only one way the human body could ever work. Unless you were to have something like a surgical procedure to change the shape and or length of your bones, they could only ever possibly do what it can. The human being, okay? So what we have is the hips needing to be able to open, and this can only happen if the legs can straighten, okay? This video is titled, the 15th of July, 2026, under In the Image Clothing Company's main site, the hips open when the legs straighten. But you'll never be able to straighten your legs with heels under your shoes. Okay, heels on your shoes, and I mean just even the slightest bit of elevation to the heel of the foot from the toes, you know, in the heel of a shoe. It could be very, very small, but you know what's very, very small in correlation, or in you know, its relative nature to the rest of the body is the toes. And we have to roll evenly off the ends of these different length 5 toes, and so if you just change the angle this happens in just a little bit, you change how the foot grips an arch, okay? Yeah, it's just physics, and so there's nothing placed onto the body until there's something placed onto the body. God designed the body to work, and then the human body that was designed by God to work designs human being-made clothing that a lot of times doesn't work at all for the body that we are clothing with it. All right, In the Image Clothing Company, our 5-word company name, just to allow the body to work, right? That's why we're here. And so here's the thing. Okay, we need to be able to straighten the knee. Like we showed earlier here, we meaning me, Evan Strong, the founder and leader for life of In the Image Clothing Company, if we straighten the knee between the foot and the hip, the whole leg will do the same exact thing. But in order to straighten the knee between the foot and the hip, you have to have a foundation. Like if I'm standing on the ground, or squatting in this case, but sure, my feet have to be neutral with the horizontal surface of the planet Earth, okay? Before I could straighten my knee. Now if I just stand up, my knee can just straighten because my feet are neutral. Watch this. Okay? And I can straighten my knees all the way. If my feet are neutral. But if I had a heel under my shoes, sole, a man-made heel of a shoe under my God-made feet, okay, and then I was standing up, my feet wouldn't be neutral, and so I couldn't actually straighten my knees without just falling forward, because there's a wedge under the heel of my foot just mathematically pushing me forward on Earth's vertical gravity pull. A wedge under the rear of the lever of the foot, right next to the hinge of the ankle. So now if I stand up with heels on shoes, for example, I can't straighten my knees and stay vertical on Earth's vertical gravity pull. Watch me fall forward with a heel under my shoe sole as a wedge if I straighten my knee all the way on Earth's vertical gravity pull. Watch this. Right? Now I straighten my knees. And with a heel under the foot, heel, on a man-made shoe heel, it'll push you forward. I mean, it's just like taking anything. I mean, imagine having something you're trying to get to balance, just vertical on Earth's vertical gravity pull. Oh, that could be the human being in its entirety, though, right? And you just put something, though, underneath one side of it, it just tips it over. We're just putting something underneath the rear of our lever of the foot, off the hinge of the ankle, if there's a heel on a shoe. Again, even just like the slightest bit of elevation to the heel that's not under the toes, right, of the foot on a man-made shoe design. So in the Image Clothing Company, our slogan is allowing the body to work. We'll never get the body to do anything. That's impossible, besides just what it already does, unless we change how it works. But it only works how it works. It's fueled by food and lubricated by water. It grows by itself. God designed it. We don't have a say, right? So it only does what it does, meshing with these universal laws that are outside of all of us, physics. And gravity just has a vertical pull. So as I wait out this airplane noise, prepare for some more discussion on this video's title on the 15th of July, 2026, under In the Image Clothing Company's main side. The hips open when the leg's straight, okay? So, yeah, we need the leg fully straight to open the hips. Now watch this. If I stand up again like I did, just with my feet flat on the ground, the term zero drop in any brand of shoe, what happens is when I straighten my knee all the way, because my lever of my foot off the hinge of my ankle is just neutral on the horizontal surface of the earth, or in the term zero drop in any brand of shoe, just so much going on, bro, around right here. My hips will open, okay, because we have to get the leg fully straight to open the hips, okay? Watch me stand up and straighten my knees, and then watch my hips fully open. I'll face the camera, and I'll face to the side, and you can see my hips actually get wider. They actually fully open up as the upper leg bone, like I'm saying, the femur, the femoral head though, the top of the upper leg bone comes up and then inward to the center line of the body. We need to fully straighten the leg to fully open the hips, right? And so when standing up, this is the same thing as if you're laying down and your legs are just flat on the ground. Okay, so watch me do this. Straightening my legs will open my hips. This video's title, the 15th of July, 2026, under In The Image Clothing Company's main side, the hips open when the legs straighten. Watch. Okay, as I straighten my legs all the way, my hips open, okay? You notice my feet arches grip the ground and open as well, because this is all just happening stemming from those different length 5 toes at the bottom of the leg, coming up and then coming to the top of the upper leg, and the upper leg bone, the femoral head, coming up and inward, following that same outward curvature that starts at the different length 5 toes. So as we straighten the knees, or straighten the whole leg, it opens the hips. So watch this. If we stand like this, just meaning if I stand facing the camera, so you can see the width of my hips, my hip bones will get to their full openness when I straighten my legs, okay? So, watch. The width of my hips actually gets wider in a way, meaning the upper leg bones are opening, which opens the whole hip capsule, have all the motion in the hip, right? There you go. When we fully straighten the leg, so watch, the width of my hips opens when I straighten my legs, okay? So that's the video's title, right? The hips open when the legs straighten. 15th of July, 2026, under In The Image Clothing Company's main site here. The thing is, you'll never be able to possibly even ever, yikes, hear this correct, have your legs straight. Not a single moment in your entire existence. Standing up, for example, with weight on your feet, if you are within shoes that have any kind of heel on them whatsoever, it'll be actually physically impossible, truly, to ever have a straight leg without just falling forward. If there's a heel under your foot on a man-made shoe, okay? Even just the slightest bit of elevation back there, because it's just a wedge pushing you forward, and if you straighten your legs, you just fall forward. Here's another airplane flying overhead in this town here in Utah County, where there's a flight school just miles from here. Here's some boys. He called me a cutie and kissed his hand and then blew it to me. And there's girls over here acting a fool, man. as well, as we have an airplane flying overhead. Alright, so, yeah, with a heel under your shoe, you can never possibly straighten your leg. Like, it's physically impossible the entire time you have that shoe on, with even the slightest bit of elevation to the heel, to ever straighten your knee fully. It's impossible, because there's a neutral to the horizontal surface of the earth. And then from there, we just have the legs traveling up, and you can just straighten the knees. You put a wedge under your heel of your foot on a man-made shoe heel, and if you straighten your knees, you'll just fall forward, unless you change the bend of the entire body. The human being has even mathematical opposing bends, front to back, as we travel from bottom to top on Earth's vertical gravity pole, starting on the horizontal surface of the Earth, which meshes with this perpendicular angle to the vertical pull to gravity. So the ankles bend backward, the knees bend forward, the hips bend backward, the lower back bends forward, the mid back bends backward, and the upper back, or just the neck, the cervical spine, bends forward. But, you know, in order to get the hips to open and have this video's title be just understood authentically without altering the only way the human being could ever possibly physically, mechanically operate, right? The hips open when the legs straighten. This video's title on the 15th of July, 2026, under In The Image Clothing Company's main side, well, the only way you can get your legs to straighten is if you don't alter your foundation. Because straightening your legs just makes you more vertical on Earth's vertical gravity pull than having bent legs. But Earth's vertical gravity pull is always vertical. And your body can only stay vertical if the feet that are designed to keep it vertical are just flat on the horizontal surface of the Earth. Right? To begin with. No heels on the shoes. Well, and I'm going to show a lot of things in this video, you know, visual about how this works. The hips open when the legs straighten. The 15th of July, 2026, under In The Image Clothing Company's main site here. So, watch what happens when I'm like this, kind of on my side a little bit, and I just straighten my knee. As I straighten my knee, my leg actually rolls out, okay? Or it rolls up and out, we could say. Because like I'm saying, that upper leg bone, the femoral head is the top of it, but the femur comes up to the femoral head, the top of the upper leg bone, and then inward toward the center line of the body when it meets into the hip. Okay, this ball and socket. The femoral head ball into the acetabulum socket of the hip. When we straighten the leg, though, at the knee, what it does is actually open the hip, right? The hips open when the legs straighten. This video's title, under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company on the 15th of July, 2026. So, because what happens is we've still got that same angle, stemming from the different length 5 toes down here at the base of our bodies in the universal human design, and then coming up and out, this whole outward curvature till we get to the top of the upper leg bone, into the hip. It's all just this outward curvature when we just straighten all the bones. Okay? So, hips open when the legs straighten. The hip actually opens out to the outside. The whole leg actually rolls outward. The entire leg. This is kind of interesting, but this is really what happens. It's internal rotation. Even though the leg rotates out, it's actually internal rotation as a whole through the whole leg because of the different length bones. Because of the different length 5 toes we evenly roll off the end of in the universal human design. Because of the upper leg bone coming up and then in toward the center of the body, even though the leg's rolling out wider, when we straighten the knee, as it opens our hip, right? This video's title. on the 15th of July, 2026, under In The Image Clothing Company's main side. The hips open when the legs straighten. Okay? But it's actually internal rotation. Okay? Even though it might not seem like it. Because it might seem like since the leg's going out, away from the body as the leg straightens, that it's rotating outward. But really we're just kind of locking the upper leg bone in this socket of the hip. Okay, the femur, the femoral head, just kind of like screws in tighter, if you will. We could say it like that, to the acetabulum of the hip. Okay, but it's just the shape of the bones. So you'll never have open hips, right? And just have all this natural motion if you can't have a straight leg. You bend your leg and you just can't open your hip all the way. Yikes. Here's the airplane again. Probably a different one, maybe. It might be the same one, I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly, but we'll continue with this once the airplane noise is not quite so noisy. Let me move over just a little bit, get a little bit more centered in the frame here. Okay, we'll talk about this because yeah. Man, what a video, huh? So here's the thing. The hips open. It's the same for the airplane pilot, you know. Universal human design applies to all the humans that are designed universally, even if you're different, right? Only different from something. The universal human design. So yeah, the hips open. Still noise from the airplane that I can hear personally. It's just another date marked documentation. The 15th of July in this case, in the Image Clothing Company's main site here. Oh, shoot. What a crazy thing to experience. Just all the things that I am here in this current location on this current day. It's not even very busy here. It's just the things that are going on right here. I mean it, you know. There's no one else over there. But there was no one here when I started filming. Wow. Okay, so yeah, the hips open when the legs straighten. So a few things, right? No heels on shoes or else you'll never be able to possibly straighten your knee without just falling forward on Earth's vertical gravity pull. Okay. The pant waistline needs to be above the hip bones but below those lowest ribs at the natural waist. The only place you can possibly bend side to side as a human being without a foot coming off the ground is the spine, all right? So the lumbar spine, this lower back, that's where our pants sit, okay? At least horizontal, if anything, maybe slightly higher in the front than in the rear to keep our hips open. Because as we straighten the legs and it opens the hips, yeah, opening the hips is straightening the hips as well. I mean, that's really the whole thing about all this is having open hips is just having your hips completely straight, really, you know, and that just happens when you completely straighten your knees. And so, you know, really having open hips, what it is the hips just being in their neutral position. And so the hips have the same neutral as the bottom of the feet. It's just the horizontal surface of the planet Earth, you know. And so the feet neutral, they can go both sides, lift up with dorsiflexion, or point down with plantar flexion. The lever of the foot off the hinge of the ankle. The hips, neutral, is the same, horizontal surface of the earth, but they come up in the front and down in the rear, posterior rotation, or they go down in the front and up in the rear, anterior rotation. And so when we straighten the legs, it opens the hips because it puts them neutral. really, is what's happening. And so this happens when we're standing, right? Watch when I stand up. The hips open when the legs straighten, because you straighten your legs and it just puts your hips into a neutral position, and that's where all their rotation is, and that's where their openness to move is. The top of the upper leg bone, the femur at the femoral head, meeting into the acetabulum of the hip, or the socket of the hip at the pelvis. Okay, watch this. The 15th of July, 2026, in the Image Clothing Company's main site here. This is what's happening. Ready? So as I just straighten my knees and my legs all the way, it opens my hips, because now my hips, well, we could say they're neutral, but really it's opening them all the way, because the neutral in the body is slightly bent through everything to have some stabilization, right? We have opposing muscles pulling on either side of the neutral position to stabilize us in that neutral position. Everything in the body has a neutral position. So the feet lever off the hinge of the ankle have this neutral, the horizontal surface of the planet Earth, or the term zero drop in any brand of shoe. But while they're here, there's a slight bend in the ankle, a slight bend in the knee, a slight bend in the hips, a slight bend in the low back, a slight bend in the mid back, and a slight bend in the upper back, or the neck, the cervical spine, so the body can stay stable on Earth's vertical gravity pull. But where this video's title comes in on the 15th of July, 2026, under In the Image Clothing Company's main side, is the hips open when the legs straighten. Well, when you straighten the legs all the way, you take away that natural slight bend that's allowing for stabilization and activation of musculature in the knees. Fully straightening the knees actually fully opens the hips into posterior rotation. So what I'm saying is, meaning, yeah, what we're talking about in this video is the full openness, the full extension of the entire legs, starting at the hips down to the feet, or we could say starting at the feet up to the hips. Just like how if we straighten the elbow and the wrist and the whole arm, that's full extension, but normally there's a slight bend just to have stabilization. But you can fully lock the bones out. That's what I'm saying here. The hips open fully, though, okay, when the leg straightens. So watch this. Now it's just like one complete straight line, essentially, as completely straight as you could get, just with the shape and length of the bones of the universal human design. When we straighten our knees and the whole leg, you know, with our feet gripping arches naturally, neutrally, normally, on the horizontal surface of the planet Earth, the term zero drop in any brand of shoe, just flat. And then the pelvis, or the hips, not being altered by pants at all, in any way, but at the waistband or down to the pant cuffs, you know, keeping the pant cuffs off the top of the feet so the feet can have their natural lifting or dorsiflexion. What I'm saying is, the only way you can ever possibly have open hips is really the point of this discussion, and also just the explanation of the anatomy and how it works, just this hinge, lever, and rotation system of the human being that only could ever possibly do what it can do. It's just mathematically measurable. It's just what it is. It can never do anything else. It's impossible for it to, without damage or alteration to the human being. To God's design, it grows by itself. There's only one way the human body could ever work, and there's no opinion to it possible for anyone, myself included, that we could ever have. But we're in deep chronic patterning if we are, and that's what I'm saying is, to get the hips to fully open, you have to fully straighten the knees. It's just like to get the shoulder fully open, we have to fully straighten the elbow. It's the same thing, right? We straighten the elbow between the hand and shoulder, and the entire arm does the exact same thing, okay? All the rotations, internal rotation or external rotation, and just anywhere the hand goes, the shoulder goes. If the body's just not altered, because it only can ever possibly do what it does. The bones are essentially just sticks. They don't move by themselves until they connect or join to another bone, or stick, if you will. The joints is the only way the body can move. It's determined by the shape and length of our bones within this universal human design. It only does what it does. Just like I showed earlier, when we straighten the knee between the foot and the hip, the entire leg does the exact same thing. Internal rotation or external rotation, and just anywhere the foot goes, the whole leg goes, in all the ways we could show it, like I was in this position earlier in this video, right? Like at a kick or full extension at the knee, fully open at the hips, and now it all just does the same thing, the entire leg. So that's really the discussion with this video's title. The hips open when the leg straightens, right? The hips open when the legs straighten. Well, we just have to be able to fully straighten our legs. Just like you have to be able to fully straighten your elbows. And then when we fully straighten the legs, we have an open hip. When we fully straighten the elbows, we have an open shoulder. It'll never possibly do anything else. The human being, there's only one way it could ever possibly work. There's no possible opinion to it. It'll never possibly change. Designed in the image of an unchanging God. In the image of Jesus Christ. Here's your clothing company. Because clothing's the only thing physically placed on us. And so if we place something onto our physical bodies, physically, no matter what it is, the literal word of clothing, right? There's only one way we can have this not alter our bodies. Like I was saying earlier, with gravity having the same effect on our clothing that it has on our bodies, with joints of material of clothing meshing with joints of body parts, with clothing having to stay centered because there's a center line to Earth's vertical gravity pull and a center line to the human being, with even opposing musculature left and right into the center line of the body. I don't care who's got any kind of idea on a workout plan, a stretching routine, even somebody who's a physical therapist or a supposed doctor, anyone who's trying to get your body to do anything just besides what it can always and has always and only ever will be able to do, physically, mechanically, measurably, mathematically, function, okay? It can't do anything besides what it does, ever. It's impossible, unless you change the shape and or length of your bones. There's no breakthrough, it's just you have to have an understanding of the only way it works. Like I say often, as the founder and leader for life of In the Image Clothing Company, me, Evan Strong, the human body and its physical functioning is something that you could take to a mechanical engineer or a mathematics professor, somebody who does physics, and they could potentially understand it more easily and more thoroughly than somebody like a physical therapist, a sports coach, a personal trainer, a chiropractor, a massage therapist, some yoga coach or something. And I'm not trying to be mean to anyone at all in this. No, not at all, just to be very clear. But it's mathematical truth. It's hinges, levers, and rotations. But the thing is, if we're stuck in chronic patterning, you just may have no idea how your body even is supposed to, meaning just should, work. The only way it ever possibly could. The bones connect directly through ligaments. There's only one neutral, and it's to the entire human being. And there's only one way it could ever possibly just work. It's just mechanics. Every human being to ever live because it's not our design. It just grows by itself. You can't work it out to get into a different position. You can't stretch your muscles anywhere. It's impossible. The bones hit into each other on both ends. Of fully extended at a joint or fully closed at a joint. It's impossible to get the body to do anything, but it just has to work all together. If we're in chronic patterning and parts of the body just aren't working, well, what about the rest of the body? Compensation tries to happen. Things try to play the role of something else that just can't. The foot can't be the elbow, right? The knee can't be the shoulder. It can't. It's impossible for it to play the same exact type of function because the physical bones, immovable by themselves, are a different shape and length. It's just a machine. That's not a way to approach it or to look at it. It's truly just a mechanical machine. Always, only and ever. Every human being to ever live. My grandparents, great-great-grandparents, great-grandparents, and as far back as you want to possibly try to go, and my grandkids, great-great-grandkids, grandkids, and on any end of time ever, there's no breakthrough. You just have to have an understanding of motion, physics. It's, and we don't know what we don't know, and we can't be held accountable for what we don't know. I didn't know just about anything. Well, I knew some things, but, like with the depth of understanding I have of the anatomy of the human body, it didn't come until I was about 24 years old, right around the time I founded In The Image Clothing Company here. And only to do what our slogan is on our main side, with allowing the body to work. So there's just no possible opinion to it, but if you're trying to physically work around something physically placed on you, your literal word of clothing, if it's not working for your body, the only way your body works, your body just won't work. There's just no opinion to it. None. And I'm not even upset. I'm just extremely mad. No. I'm just passionate about it because it'll never change, and there's no viewpoint. There's no side to take. There's no amount of schooling that'll ever teach you something new about the human being, like a breakthrough on how to do something new. Never. No exercise that'll ever get your body to do something new. It's impossible. Mathematically, mechanically impossible. So it's not about me. I mean, I couldn't own this information. That's why I say it so clear, don't believe me. I mean it, hear me correct with this, but Evan Strong, the founder and leader for life of In The Image Clothing Company, don't believe any of our team members with any of our information, even any of our poodles over on In The Image Clothing Company Poodles, one of our fourths to In The Image Clothing Company. I say it because truth is truth. No matter who you believe or what you believe, it's physics, it's mathematics, it's Earth's vertical gravity pull that will never change, and it's this universal human design that's just determined by the shape and length of the bones, with its hinges, levers, and rotations. Quite the video. So anyway, yeah. This video is titled the 15th of July 2026 under In The Image Clothing Company's main side. The hips open when the legs straighten. But, this is a lot of reason why it's not natural to sit in a chair. Because, if I'm sitting on the ground here like this, I can straighten my legs all the way. And my hips can just stay open. But if I were sitting on a chair, I can't straighten my legs. The rear of my upper leg hits into the chair. And so, in order for the hips to fully open, we have to straighten the legs. And you just can't physically possibly straighten your legs sitting in a chair. Like with the knees somewhere around 90-degree bend, if you will, like a right angle. But just, a chair up off the ground, a man-made chair. It's not going to be possible for you to straighten your legs because you'll just hit the rear of your upper leg into the chair. And you can't straighten it, right? So that's the thing, is if people spend a lot of time sitting in chairs, really any time at all, unless you're doing it extremely centered and intentional, you'll never have a straight knee. It'll be impossible to, unless you break through the chair. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. You'd have to break through the chair to straighten your leg. Like, there's a chair on the rear of your upper leg on these hamstring muscles. If you'll never have open hips, you'll never be able to open your hips if you can't just open your hips. I mean, like, there's only one way the human body could ever work. I'm not laughing at people. I had no idea, these kind of things. I had no idea until I was like 24 years old. We just get blinded by the world, we have chairs that don't exist until human beings make them. You just sit on the ground in nature or something, a little rock or a stump. But these chair heights, you never could possibly straighten your leg in a chair. Wow, like naturally. Like I can just fully relax sitting on the ground and have my legs straight. In a chair, you'd have to like lift your whole leg off the ground, like extend your knee with your quadriceps just to straighten your leg and hold it up off of Earth's vertical gravity pull. There's only one way the human body could ever possibly work. There's no breakthrough. It's not about me, bro, but I'll be doing this the rest of my entire life. I don't have an opinion on it. And it doesn't exclude a single human being to ever live. Even if you've got a deformed body or an amputation or something. Earth's vertical gravity pull is the same, and so is just physics, motion in any way. These universal laws, it only does what it does. Life, God, if you will, even if you won't. See what I mean? Truth is truth. It's not my choice. So I'm not trying to point fingers and, yell at people, but I'm just speaking as bold as I am. As I say, it's just another date-marked documentation to show congruency, to show longevity, to show the truth of this, and the credibility of what we're doing here behind In the Image Clothing Company. Anyway, no possible opinion to it. So, yeah, sleeping, you need to sleep on something pretty nice and flat. In order to have open hips, right? If you're sleeping, you need to be pretty much on something just about completely flat, because the hips open when the legs straighten. And if you're on something squishy, your body sinks into it and your hips can't open because your legs can't straighten. Anyway, there's a lot of discussion. Yikes, these light colored pants on the dirt, might get dirty. Which is fine, but it's just, yeah. Anyway, it's as real as it gets, bro. There's no possible opinion. Not of my own either. It's not like I'm battling someone. It's just the truth is the truth, even if you don't know it. In every instance of existence ever, truth is always just truth. We don't get to decide it or change it as human beings. Sorry for the audio, in all the ways. Things that I'm causing that are making sounds over my words or anything around. But it's just what it is. The information's here, alright, permanently documented under what I call the gift of video. This is one of my favorite videos, by far, to date. The 15th of July, 2026, under any of the four sides of In the Image Clothing Company so far, because this is what makes us credible. I could try to claim anything about whatever. I could just say that phrase casually. There's only one way the human body could ever work. But we've got well over 600 videos as of today's date. Like I said earlier, but under In the Image Clothing Company's main site alone, that I've personally filmed as the founder and leader for life, Evan Strong, where I've discussed things so thoroughly with the anatomy of the human body and what clothing's doing it, how it works, and the only way it ever possibly could. And I've shown the visual examples, and, I know the anatomy, I know at least enough terminology to explain it properly. But the thing is, you can explain the entire body without knowing a single, technical term of a bone or a muscle, but, you just know what it does. It only does what it does. The terminology comes secondary to just understanding what it does. You figure out what it does, and then you can label it, Credibility. I'm here for life, man. I'm not trying to just build something that might last a little while. This information is legitimately entirely permanent. And the thing is, most everyone doesn't know this kind of stuff. And it's just so hard too, when we're so detached from the only way the human being could ever possibly work, living in societies that just don't work for the body. The only way the body works, like sitting on a chair, there's no opinion to it. You can either straighten your knee or you can't. If you've got something physically behind your knee joint, sitting in a chair, right, you can't straighten your knee. It's impossible. Physically impossible. And so that's why if you ever see me sitting down on a chair, just about any time at least, right, I'll be sitting on the very edge of it, because now you're just closer to being able to straighten your leg than if you're sitting back farther on the chair and the chair's physically in the way of your knee joint extending. It's just a hinge of a knee and a lever of the two bones in the lower legs and the one bone in the upper leg extending. I mean, it's just physics. But you're not going to know if you're not going to know. You just grow up sitting in chairs. When the point is, people hundreds of years ago didn't. There's no such thing as this world we have in modern 2026, for example, back in like 1926 or 1826 or 1726. If we just go hundreds of years back at a time, the way we interacted with life was just completely different. From generation to generation, each time there's more inventions of human beings and, clothing though. I mean, because chairs are something you can physically place your body onto, but the literal word of clothing, what we discuss here under In the Image Clothing Company when we discuss clothing, it's just anything physically placed on you. It's directly on you. Everything we do in our lives, we're doing it in and through the literal word of clothing. Anyway, thank you. Check out the other 3 sides of In the Image Clothing Company if you'd like to. I mentioned it, In the Image Clothing Company Poodles. We specialize in the large size or standard size purebred poodle, but give information to all dogs. Okay. In the Image Clothing Company podcast with discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. We're on episode 210 as of today's date, the 15th of July, 2026. Just deep insights on life. We're all human beings, the same thing, placed on the same earth, designed by the same God, even if you're not religious. I'm not religious either. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, though. Stick around and find out if you'd like to. In the Image Clothing Company music, we do rhythm and poetry, lyricism, spoken word, singing, guitar playing, singing again sometimes if we do. Where we do music, that's where we do it often. If it's often that we're doing it. Yeah, so we show the sizing and setup of guitar to not alter the body. There's always still only a neutral to the wrist and always just a rounding to the open palm with different length 4 fingers wrapping evenly around. Literal wording there. An opposable thumb. Okay, thank you, goodbye. More to say, more to come. I'm doing this for the rest of my life. Thank you, goodbye.